Sheldon, we just finished spilling some tea in real life. Let's instead, however, talk about spilling some tea on the challenge with 2 hours of the challenge this week.
I just finished watching 2 hours of television. And you know what? Before I sat down to do this, I was a little like, oh man, there's 2 hours I got to watch. And not in like a bad way or a negative way, but it just seemed like a tall task, right? Like you're committing yourself to 2 hours of television all in one sitting. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. Then I watched both shows. Wow, 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 wow. All in on both shows. So excited. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's go, as Devin always constantly says now. Just for long time listeners might know this, but it's a tradition on our podcast that you and I don't speak to each other basically on the day of the challenge.
Yes.
Like, we try hard to not influence each other's thinking. And not that you broke that last night, but just to back up what you were saying, you messaged me to be like, oh man, I forgot there was 2 hours. And I was like, I know.
Well,
and we were talking about how key the tool of the PVR is for the lives we lead now.
Well, I would have totally forgotten, but I was watching the Raptor game with Challenge fan, You Killed It fan, and one of my really good friends, Lawrence Thomas. And
LT?
So we were out watching the Raptor game last night, and he said, oh no, I forgot to set my PVR for Champs versus Stars after. And I was like, oh, I totally forgot as well. And so that's what happened. I was like, oh, had to go on to my trusty app and log on to my phone and set my PVR to record it. And yeah, that's what happened. Here we are. Now we're discussing.
Here we are. We should say who we are and on top of being here we are. I'm John Chidley Hill.
And I am, once again, Sheldon Alexander.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. As we've been saying for the past few minutes, we're covering off the second half of the reunion for the challenge Vendettas, and we are also going to talk about the premiere of Champs vs. Stars 2.
Yep.
Since this is the third in their off-season series, which is, I mean, it's still ridiculous to me that we are now, like, this has now been a full year of consecutive challenges in one form or another.
Yeah, I mean...
They're really stepping it up. It's a lot. It's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content, and it's funny because they didn't drag out this finale as much as they did last finale of Dirty 30, which was good. And I don't think they dragged out the season as much as they did Dirty 30 either, which was also good. And I appreciate both those moves. And also to kind of tease a little of the conversation coming up about Champs versus Stars, I really enjoyed the changes so far that they made to that as well. So, yeah, I'm just happy here. I'm in my happy place right now. Lots going on in the challenge world. Let's get to it because obviously it'll be tough to fit in all of these things into like an hour or so conversation, right? So,
yes,
the reunion though, you know, I think it kind of worked last week how we did it, where we just kind of like rifled off things that were going on in the reunion, the topics they brought up, and kind of deciding like whether we cared or not, or what we thought about each thing. So we want to just roll through that again, and then we'll get to the Champs versus Stars. Yeah,
I'm into it.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
I think it's a good format.
I mean, it's kind of funny that we're having this conversation like during the podcast and not before the podcast in terms of, well, how do we want to discuss it? But I like it. I like it this way. Let's go.
No, we're just a thrill-a-minute podcast that doesn't need to get organized beforehand.
It's true.
And also, I feel, again, I have to keep reminding myself that, you know, every episode of You Killed It could be a new episode of You Killed It. Like, we could have new listeners.
True. Very true.
Neither you nor I are morning people, and we record this show early in the morning.
Yes.
Basically every week. So I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not ever sharp for this show. For when we record, I am always struggling. I edit out a lot of yawns.
That's funny.
So
that's funny. Well, hopefully I will do my best, John, to keep you entertained and wake you up as I talk about how much I enjoyed the second reunion episode. And I thought it was a lot better. And I don't know if like there's just some more drama or just more of the things that we want to see from the reunion in terms of unseen footage, in terms of, well, who hooked up with who and like that kind of talk. But let's just go through it, I guess, kind of chronologically. And if there's something that we don't really care about, let's just say, I'll mention it and we'll just say we don't really care about it and move on. Make sense?
Let's do it.
So the first thing I wrote down was unseen fight between Marie and Cara. And, I guess a big thing here was that when Marie got eliminated from the show, she left a note that basically said, it was a note for Cara, basically letting Cara know that while she was busy giving BJs to Kyle basically was flirting with a bunch of other people in the house, most notably Sylvia. And that to me was very interesting because, again, we could have new listeners right now, but if you go back into our our You Killed It archives, you will find an interview that we did. It's actually episode 54, right around Valentine's Day. We interviewed Marie and Sylvia at the same time on our challenge podcast, You Killed It. And that's a full story, actually, of what happened, right, between Sylvia and Kyle. We get that full scoop. But getting back to what's going on here in the reunion show, what did you think of the fact of Marie leaving a note and trying to tell Cara Maria, hey, your boy's out here like flirting and he probably wants someone else? Like, what did you make of that move by Marie?
I mean, I think I'm mixed on it because on the one hand, it's a solid friendship move to be like, hey, so just as, even though he did it for gameplay, Devin tipping Nelson off to the Kaylee Bananas situation, I thought was a solid thing to do. I don't know, but I think it's kind of diminished by doing it in a note and doing it after you've left so there can be no follow-up discussion. Yeah. And, I think it's a purposely disruptive move. But, I mean, all in all, I don't think it's that bad. At least someone told her.
Yeah. No, I look at it that way, too. And I think that, Cara's a very interesting character on this show. And I use the term character because I feel like I don't know, or we rarely get to see who Cara actually is. I feel like I don't know who the real Cara Maria is in terms of, is it the Cara who is, always feels hurt or slighted by other people or feeling like she always has to prove herself? Or is Cara the, well, I don't really care that he was flirting with everybody else. Like, I was still fucking him. I was still hanging with them. I was still, is that the Cara, the confident? And I guess it could be a mixture of both. Do you know what I mean? But I just feel like we see such like extremes, and it seems like it happens within seconds, right? That I'm often like, I don't know. This seems really weird. But the other thing is, I think that Marie trying to play it off like, oh, I'm trying to do you a favor, Cara. I think she was definitely trying to do it in terms of like a ha ha ha, like you think that you got, you're one-upping me or you're one-upping because you got Kyle, but really Kyle's out here playing you. I think she kind of did it to like rub it in her face more so than to be like, just so you know.
Yeah, it wasn't with the best of intentions.
Yes, exactly. Next thing, we got Bananas and Devin, which, I mean, was a thing throughout this whole entire second episode of the reunion, which I thought was super funny. But this was the highlight of the season, right? And Devin makes a good point just about what happened in terms of, again, the biggest thing this season was Devin and Bananas going back and forth, Devin eliminating Bananas in that elimination. And, Bananas, the point that Devin was making about Bananas, he's obviously the most winning person on the show of all time, right? So if you're not trying to get him out, you're playing scared. And I give Devin a lot of credit for that because he's right. And,
he's 100% right.
He's totally right. And it was funny to see Corey jump in and Corey kind of be like, this is what I've been talking about for so long, right? It was cool to see. And I know you're a big Devin fan, but how much did you enjoy watching Devin and Bananas go back and forth, especially when Bananas had weak comebacks? Like, what was he blamed editing?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like,
I loved Devin for saying, oh yeah, bad editing, classic excuse. I mean, first of all, the reunion, first and second half, massive KO for Devin.
Yeah.
Wes tweeted that Devin won the reunion, and he's absolutely right.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Devin came off, I don't want to say the best of everyone, but like top 3 finish, and got big wins in terms of like the verbal sparring with people, especially just racking up the points.
Oh yeah,
on Johnny Bananas.
Like,
and I have to say, in general, and we're going to touch on this later, I know, but I'm going to skip ahead.
That's fine.
After we agreed on a format, I'm just going to go ahead and ignore it.
No rules. As you please.
I need a Johnny Bananas break. I need space from him, because it's not just his gameplay, which is, he's a hypocrite. Like, this is a guy who, on the first season of Rivals, basically had the entire house trying to take out CT and Adam because they're threatened by CT. But when people come at Johnny Bananas and say, we want to take you out because we're threatened by you, he loses it and acts like it's a federal offense.
For sure. Oh, definitely.
And Devin 100% called him out and is 100% accurate when he said that Johnny Bananas' entire strategy is not going into elimination because he knows he'll lose. And he's right. Johnny Bananas has a terrible track record in eliminations.
Yeah.
Right? When was the last time Johnny Bananas won an elimination? He won the shadow bracket in Battle of the X's. And then he won to get in with Nani.
Yeah.
And then he and Nani were eliminated. In fairness, he wasn't... Oh, no, he had to compete against Leroy, didn't he? In any event, Devin's entirely right. And I'll tell you why I'm sick of Johnny Bananas in general.
Okay.
I got so tired of... I'm getting tired of the quote-unquote behind-the-scenes footage he shoots.
Yes.
Of, like, him and Kaylee on a date, and then later, like, Melissa coming out of the shower in his place. Like, it's so staged.
Yes, and it makes me wonder, like, is he getting producer credits or something? Like, what's going on here? Because it's so, like, phony and contrived, and it's like, I don't even care if you did or did not sleep with Melissa, but it's completely, if I did care, the fact that you decided that you're just going to pull out your cell phone and film her coming out wrapped in a challenge flag, right? Like, you're going to sit there and film that in a completely staged thing, like, just makes it seem so lame, right? That, like, I don't even care. And
send it to the producers.
Yeah.
Or like, however they got their hands on it. Like, it's so, like, I'm so over that. It's so staged. And, like, there was a lot of talk on Twitter of him going on a date with Natalie when they got back to the United States.
Okay.
That was posted everywhere. It was on, like, Us Weekly or something. Yep. And Veronica and Jemmy really took him to task, saying, like, it was staged. I remember Veronica saying something like, get a better publicist.
For sure.
They got you a table right by the washrooms. Like, come on. And I'm with them. Like, I'm honestly not sure that he and Melissa actually hooked up, because that was so staged.
Yeah, and again, like,
the timing and everything is and go away, Johnny Bananas.
And again, right, it's like, if something went down in the house, I feel like, it's part of the house drama. You care about it because it's, like, part of the episode, or how it impacts a game and gameplay and strategy and who's in what alliance or whatever. You know what I mean? and you care in that aspect. But now when you're feeding me storylines, because I get what you're trying to do, you're coming up with ways to ensure that you get camera time, right? And that's all he's been doing. And to further that point, even if you notice at the very end, when they unveil who the winner is, he's like standing right in the middle of the shot with his little GoPro camera filming, like, you know, like he's filming it as if he's an extra camera guy on the shoot. Like, if you go back and watch that, I was like, why is he standing there? He's like blocking the actual shot of her holding up the check. And it's like, this dude needs to go away. I agree. It was just annoying. It's just like so phony. But also, the ironic part to this whole thing, right, that I was going to mention is just that if you watch the arguments that he's having with Devin's like laughing and joking around and like calling him out. And then even if you compare it to the argument that Brad and Zach had, right, they're going at each other, but they're like calm, right? You watch Johnny Bananas, his neck veins are like, his neck's all like red and his veins in his neck are like popping out. Like, he's actually so upset. And it made me realize that, oh, so this guy's really butthurt because he's done so much to try to plot out and shape his image on this show and do all these different things to make him, to put himself in this positive light. And instead, he ends up looking like a bozo, and now he can't control that. So that's why he's really mad at Devin, because everyone's calling him on his bullshit, right? Like, he goes to great lengths to produce his own narrative, essentially, for the whole season, for the whole reunion show, right? Like, that's the only reason you shoot that footage. You and Kaylee are already off the show, right? You're both eliminated. You're both hanging around, but now you're going to film that video and send it to the producers. Same thing with you and Melissa, right? Like, it's just super phony, and you're trying to come up with stuff already to put your own narrative out there, but now you're getting called on it, and now you're super mad. And I noticed that, and I was like, oh man, this guy's really actually upset here because he's getting played in a situation that he thought he had it all figured out.
To give it some perspective too, Zach and Brad's fight, which you already alluded to, I think of any of the fights, that was the most real, because if I were Brad, I'd be pissed at Zach too. Because Zach like went for blood in confessional and on Twitter, and like that was like real life commentary about things going on in Brad's life. Yeah. So like, you know, I kind of do agree with Zach. He probably should have just kept his mouth shut. That, you know, Brad is making poor decisions and is probably going through a midlife crisis. Yeah. But like, that's a real argument. Like, that's real life shit. Yeah. And
the other thing too, though, about that, and let's get into Zach and oh, sorry, no, I'll let you finish off. Well, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like that was a real life argument about real life things, and it was less contentious.
Yes.
Like, neither Brad nor Zach got as angry as Johnny Bananas was with Devin.
Yeah.
Like, think about the perspective there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Johnny Bananas is more upset about getting schooled at his own game than Brad is about being criticized and, like, being a poor role model for his children. Like, it's not the same scale at all. Yeah.
No, it's totally true. And you know, the thing is, Devin had the zingers coming from everywhere, and Bananas tried, and he's like, "You're a 9-volt," and what do you call himself? He's like a car battery.
I'm a car battery dude. I'm a car battery bro.
Yeah, like, that was so terrible. And I love how Devin just turned it back on him, and he's like, "We can go back in again, and I'll light bright your ass up." I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, I mean, to I guess kind of continue or wrap up for now the Johnny Bananas shit. I just think it was a super lame look on his part, and it looked like who came out the worst in it. Like, if we're saying Devin was kind of the MVP of the reunion show, Bananas definitely came out the worst, and Kaylee definitely also came out the worst in this, right?
Yeah, Kaylee came off so bad. I have one more note about Johnny Bananas.
No, that's cool. Yeah,
and that is he fell for a classic professional wrestling mistake. Mm-hmm. And that is when you're cutting a promo on someone, you know, like on Saturday Morning Wrestling where they're like running each other down. Yep. Like, you never actually want to put down the person you're up against, because if you lose to them, what's that make you? And that's exactly what Johnny Bananas did when he said, "Oh, you're a 9-volt battery and I'm a car battery." And then Devin could easily say, "You lost to a 9-volt battery."
Yeah.
Right? Which is so real. Yep. It's so real. But yeah, I agree with you. The two people that came off the worst were Johnny Bananas and, in my mind, Kaylee for sure. Like, Kaylee looked like such a train wreck. And, like, on the one hand, taking offense to what people are saying and being really viciously rude to, like, Jemmy, who I thought was just making fair points. Mm-hmm. But also, like, why is she still friends with Melissa? Like, I thought they were each other's vendettas coming onto the show.
Yeah.
Yet, like, she's spreading gossip about Nelson and, like, spreading apparently groundless rumors about Tony and Kayla. Just, like, a total mess.
Yeah. Yeah, she had
not a good look at all.
She did have a terrible, terrible episode. And, yeah, she was getting it from all sides in the sense that, you know, she's getting called out because at the end of the day, one of the topics was about all these rumors surrounding Melissa hooking up with all these people. And, it was all brought up by Kaylee. Like, she was the one that essentially started all these rumors, right? And so when they talked about whether it was a Cam and Melissa fight, you know, where did that all start? Oh, well, because Kaylee was telling everyone that Melissa was hooking up with everyone in the house. That's how it started. But then when she gets called on it, I think Devin said this too. When she gets called on it, she then reverts back and starts playing the victim and being like, oh no, everyone's ganging up on me. What did I do? I didn't do anything. Everyone's ganging up on me. And it's like, no. Everyone's just calling you on your bullshit. Right? Like, that's not ganging up on you. Like, you brought this on yourself. They wouldn't have known any of this stuff to even question Melissa about it or even, you know, have to defend Nelson if you didn't start all these rumors, right? So it was just funny to see her have to answer for it. And you know someone has nothing to say when their retort was, shut up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's all she really said. Like, Jemmy, shut up. Nobody's talking to you. Right? Like,
I have to say, I have to trust the instincts of the house. Mm-hmm. When everyone dislikes someone or everyone brings up the same problems about someone, regardless of, like, friendship, like, social circles or alliances or whatever, like, if everyone's saying that Kaylee is a bitch and runs her mouth, like, everyone, even people who aren't normally close, like, I don't get the sense that Devin and Kayla are close as an example, but they're in agreement about this. It's probably the case. And on that same note, the conversation about Cara Maria and how she carries herself in the house, I think that, and, like, we touched on this last week, one of us said that she must carry herself like she's top shit, because every single reunion we hear all these women complaining about how Cara comes off as a very entitled, arrogant person, right? Like, Nicole, Kayla, there's someone else who mentioned it, or Sylvia, Marie. Mm-hmm. Like, if all of these women are saying, like, oh, and Cara Jordan. Maria thinks she's hot shit, and Jordan, if all these people feel this way, they must be, like, there must be something to it if so many people are saying it. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Like, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And it was interesting to see, too, just how, you know, the different people who aren't used to the challenge and how they came on to the show, right? And, like, because now Cara Maria is a vet, obviously, right? And so she's been on the show for a long time. And so the recurring theme each and every season is, you know, paying your dues, earning your spot, and how the newbies fit into the house. And this was different because the people that were new were all coming off of different reality shows that were completely different than what the challenge was. And so you could tell that what Kaylee and Melissa and what their shows, X on the Beach, like that's just all drama. That's just all backstabbing. That's just all creating storylines and making stuff up, right? Like that's the only role or thing that happens on those shows. You hook up and you talk shit about other people, right? So how are you going to come on and fit a role on the challenge? You're going to do the same, except that doesn't get you very far in the house, right? Unless you're hooking up with the right person, I guess. I don't know, right? But that's basically the role that they ended up playing. And it was funny to compare that to Natalie, who was very quiet again, right? And she's very quiet again. And I was kind of thrown off by, are they still trying to pretend as if her and Johnny were like at least kind of a thing? I found that kind of weird. But it was interesting to watch Natalie because Devin said the same thing that we've been saying week after week, that Natalie came on thinking that it was Big Brother, right? And like that was her biggest problem, right? And she was riding the wave and tried to pretend that she was flip-flopping each and every week to whoever had the power, when really she was just on Bananas' side the whole time, right? And would have been better off just going and acting that way, right? So to me, it was just cool to see that kind of how the season played out with the new people on the show and how they fit in and how they interacted with the quote-unquote vets.
But shout out to Natalie, because the one time I guess she kind of spoke twice, but I said last week how the reunion changes my opinions on people. Mm-hmm. I did not like Natalie in particular this season, but I liked her in the reunion. Like, I liked that she kept her mouth shut unless it was directly about her. Yep. And I thought she really carried herself with a lot of dignity, both by saying, I was hurt by Johnny Bananas and Kaylee, but, I'm over it now.
Yep.
And she said, Johnny, if you want to talk about further in person, or she said something like, I'm going to sleep on it, which is like a mature real life thing to say.
Yes.
But I also liked that she agreed with Devin, and she said, yeah, I made mistakes this season. I came in with the wrong strategy. Like, I really this is one of the frustrating things about the challenge reunions, is that people can't admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Or rarely admit that they were wrong, and I really respect her for being like, no, I made mistakes, but I learned. Mm-hmm. Like, I really like that, and it seems like Kyle, I never disliked Kyle in this season, but I felt like Kyle also presented well in that way, where he was like, no, like, I know I can't use the same strategy anymore.
Yeah.
I could do better.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about Kyle is just super weird to me. I don't know. I'm still not digging his vibe. I don't know what it is. I'm interested to see just how he continues, like how the game that he'll play on the next season if he comes back. Well, I guess he's going to come back because he was quoted as saying in this episode, right? I love this. I want to do this for the rest of my life, right? So I guess we'll be getting more Kyle down the line, but yeah, he had an interesting first season, and I'm very excited to see how he'll do in upcoming seasons for sure. And that's as I said, I'm not even a fan of Kyle's. I'm not rooting for him in any way, but I feel like he is someone who understands the manipulative nature of the show. And so that's good for drama as a viewer.
You were just saying, and you're totally right, that everyone from non-challenge real-world road rules shows, and even to a lesser extent, Are You the One, but all the Brits this season, and Natalie and Victor, not that he really figured it at all.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
They all came in, they all came in trying to apply the strategies from their previous shows. Mm-hmm. And of any of those newbies, I think Kyle was the best at adapting.
Yeah, that's
fair.
At
first he did come in and he was trying to hook up with everyone, which is exactly what they do on Geordie Shore. But he, although maybe he was still flirtatious, he did end up focusing on just Cara, and he did get into the gameplay.
Yeah.
And he started keeping he adapted, and that's what saw him to third place.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. Kyle finished third.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I never would have guessed that. I never would have thought that at the start of the season. And it is an amazing accomplishment for Kyle. And as much as we talked about Cam being the rookie of the year, right? Shouldn't it really be Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, in all honesty, I know Cam had a difficult season because she had to go into the elimination so much more. And I don't think Kyle never went in an elimination, right? No. But,
no.
I mean, the guy came in third overall. Like, shouldn't that be worth at least a discussion about the rookie of the year?
I mean, I think it depends on what you're looking for in your rookie of the year. Because certainly in terms of, like, who went the furthest.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, we've never even discussed that, right? Like, that just, I don't really ever see that. And maybe it's because Cam's out there self-proclaimed rookie of the year, and we've heard other competitors call her that and say that about the season that she's had. They vocalize that on the show, but they don't really vocalize it the same way about Kyle. But, you know, let's switch gears a little here, because from Kyle to someone that we were used to seeing in challenge circles, right? Brad had a very interesting reunion episode, and this might sound weird, but Brad to me was more likable. And I don't know if because the bar was set so low with me that, like, his just realization that, hey, yeah, like, maybe I handled things a little wrong with the pizza. And, like, I thought it was just funny that he was like, I gave myself a timeout and I was wrong, right? Like, I don't know if that's what it was, you know, and it's just a fact of what you were just saying, John, about, you know, people don't normally admit their own mistakes. But Brad was there to say, yeah, you know, I probably overreacted to the pizza thing. And, you know, even in the moment, as soon as I said it, I kind of knew I was wrong. And then I went off a little too much, and then I gave myself a timeout, which I found like that to be very funny. Brad, I didn't mind Brad. I'll say that. I didn't mind Brad as nearly as much as I did when he was in the house. And the way that he handled the whole Zach thing too. Like, it was funny. Like, he said, I woke up in the morning and I saw Zach's tweet, and that got me going. And it's like, all right, we're on. Right? I thought that was just funny because it was an honest reaction, right? And it wasn't the contrived Johnny Bananas, you know, I'm trying to manipulate a storyline or I'm trying to create a storyline. It was just someone reacting to a situation in real time. And sometimes you're going to react in a good way. Sometimes you're going to react in a bad way. But when you take a step back, you're able to reflect on it and be okay with how you handled it and be, like, rational about it as you react to it, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed Brad on this episode.
I liked Brad too, and it's funny how like what a difference it makes when the person carries themselves in a reasonable manner on the reunion, or, like, generally keeps their mouth shut. Like, I'm a little turned off by Shane these days, but by Shane keeping so quiet for most of the reunion, I liked him more. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, when you're always chiming in, I'm like Jordan annoyed me a lot because I'm like, Jordan, just shut up.
And it's like you weren't even on this season.
Yeah, like, just keep and, like, stop standing up and point, like, just stop it. Like, who put a nickel in you?
Yeah.
But whereas, like, Natalie, who, like I said, only spoke when it was specifically about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it makes me like Natalie more because I'm like, oh, you're a mature, reasonable person. Similarly, Zach hardly spoke.
It's true. Yes. And I got to give Zach credit for his tweets because, like,
yes,
so I did write down his full-on tweet, which I thought was I don't know if it's a line of the whole episode because Devin had a bunch of them, but the fact that he was telling Brad to go play on his turntables that he bought at Toys R Us as you prepare for your illustrious DJ career, which I don't remember being a thing, but I found that pretty funny.
Nope.
But then saying, don't be a Brad, which for all the internet peeps out there, do you catch what that reference is? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, isn't that
it's a Barstool thing, right? So basically, Barstool Sports is I don't even know how to describe Barstool Sports because it's like
it's a broy sports website.
It's very broy, and depending on which corners of the internet people hide from, one of the best descriptions I've heard was Barstool is basically the bro white guy version of World Star Hip Hop. So what World Star was, like, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, that's what Barstool Sports is now. And their whole thing is when they have like a really bro-y dude doing something, they'll hashtag it or they'll caption it and call that person a Brad. And they'll always say, "Don't be a Brad." And I'm being very political with how I describe what a Brad is, but I feel like people know what I'm talking about, right? Like if you know what Barstool is and the kind of do Saturdays are for the boys and like what those bros do, right? They'll always do it and then be like, "Don't be a Brad." So I found that very funny that obviously his name is Brad, but the use of it in this term by Zach, I thought it was very funny how he's like, "Don't be a Brad." I found that hilarious because the double entendre, let's say, right?
It was clever. I missed that subtlety. Thank you for explaining it. Thanks for getting me in the loop.
I try, right? I try. But yeah, I thought it was overall. I thought the reunion show was good, and there was a lot of like stuff we didn't know about. Like I think you alluded to this actually, the Natalie and Veronica. What Johnny Bananas call it? A snuggle cuddle or something?
A struggle cuddle.
Yeah, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. I've never heard that term before.
I don't know.
But anyways, I mean, cool. Like I'm here for that. And someone yelled over, "That sounds like a missed opportunity." Right? Like that's how you know Johnny Bananas was being fake too, right? Because it's like you weren't really mad about that, bro. Like what are you talking about?
No.
Right? Like so I don't know. You're right. Natalie did handle herself right. And, you know, Veronica is also someone who's very quiet. She's super quiet, didn't really have much to say. I like how Cam came off in this. Like, Cam was going at Melissa as well. And I really felt that Cam was being genuine when she was trying to tell Melissa, like, "Yo, this is how you're being perceived." Like, she doesn't strike me as a person that's just going to start a fight. And then when you see how the rest of the season played out, remember when the girls tossed Kaylee stuff, it was Cam that was like, "Okay, you guys don't all have to be involved in all this. Like, if you're going to go at her, make it one-on-one," right? Like, it was a very, like, she seems very rational, and she just continued that. And I really like Cam as a character going forward on the challenge. But yeah, overall, Cara Maria won. Cool. More power to her. As I said before, though, Cara's I don't know. I don't get Cara Maria. I don't know. It's not my vibe. It's not my jam. I also just think that she's the only of all the vets that come on as female competitors, right? Like you're talking Jemmy, you're talking Veronica, and I guess her, right? And then I guess Anissa comes on sometimes, like fairly regularly. But for the most part, Cara is by far the one that's in shape, and like you could tell, like in shape and working out to be on the show. Like the other people's games are political games, right? So if they get thrown in an elimination, chances are they're out of they're out. They're going home. And it reminded me of Laurel taunting her and just saying, you know, like when the big dogs are there, Cara's nowhere to be found, right? Like she's not winning anything. And I kind of agree with that because I know this. Like, maybe I'm wrong here, John. Tell me if I'm wrong. I know this was a single winner, right? And I know that she's like, "Oh, I won." And, you know, the first time there's only one winner and I won and girl power and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, you are correct on the one hand, but that wasn't really the competition for the whole season, right? And you benefited from, you know, as Nelson pointed out, you're always trying to walk around as if you shouldn't go into the eliminations. And then at the same time, trying to flip it and be like, "Well, I don't think that. I don't think I'm better than anyone." Meanwhile, saying, "I've paid my dues. I've paid my dues." You know, like, I don't know. She's a flip-flopper. It's like Johnny Bananas. I don't like it. Not here for it. Congratulations. I'm happy she won, but I'm not happy she won.
Her game is definitely modeled on Johnny Bananas' game.
Avoid eliminations as much as possible.
Avoid eliminations, and if you're going into elimination, like, try to force it so it's against someone who's a layup.
Yes.
In your mind, a layup.
Exactly. Yep. Pretty much.
And they have to evolve with the game.
Well, what's happening, though, John, with the game is that really you're just getting more new characters. right? And so the numbers are just dwindling on their side. So where the numbers always used to be in Johnny Bananas' corner, right? It's flip flop now, and he's going to be in trouble going forward, unless like
Yep.
And I don't think CT or Wes are going to come back on a normal season of the challenge anymore, right? So unless like those kind of guys end up coming back, the numbers aren't on Johnny Bananas' side at all, especially now that he's lost Tony, he's probably lost Zach. So it's basically him and Leroy every year. You know what I mean? Like, that's it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not looking good.
And I feel like Leroy at some point is going to get sick of Johnny Bananas' shit.
I don't know. I feel like Leroy is very loyal, and I think they're actually friends outside of the house, so I don't know. Like, I can't really see Leroy turning on Johnny. Like, I can't really see that. But maybe.
I don't think it'll necessarily be like a full heel turn a la Tony.
Yeah.
But I could imagine him being like, hey, like, Johnny, like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Like cut it out, and then Johnny like popping off at him, and then him being like, okay, like, that's enough, Johnny. You know what I mean? Like, I can see it being a more mutual parting of the ways.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the last thing I got on this reunion show was I thought that Zach won. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought Zach was going to win, especially after Cara started crying, because I was like, once I saw her crying on the episode, I was like, hold on. If I know that I won $300,000, almost $400,000, I'm not crying for anything. Like, why am I crying? But that just made it, like, to go back to my point before about, I feel like it's always like she's trying to manipulate us sometimes, right? And like, get people to feel sorry for her, and like, why are you crying? Like, there's nothing to cry about. Nobody said anything to you that should make you cry or like get that upset. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so weird. And then especially, again, if you know that you won $400,000, I'm not crying about anything. I'm sitting there with a big ass grin on my face the entire time, like Zach did, and that's why I thought Zach won the whole time.
Yeah, I thought, I agree with you. I thought Zach had won. I thought that was partly why he was so quiet. Like, I feel like he was struggling to not tip his hand, so he just kept quiet. I think if we're going based off of how the entire season went, I think Zach should have won. Like, he and Tony dominated from start to finish.
Facts.
So I think he should have won. Although, you know, Cara Maria was in there too. Like, she definitely, I'm not like, oh my god, she robbed everyone, she shouldn't have been on. Yeah, I think
she benefited from just being on the right side of the house, because where Tony and Zach were pulling all the strings, they're making all the moves. Cara was just on the right side and managed to stay out of their way, right, and not really cause many problems, and that was her real victory, I think.
And she and Zach get along together.
Yeah.
As we've been talking, I went and I looked at the cast spoilers for Final Reckoning.
What's Final? Is that what the next season's called? Final Reckoning? I didn't even know that.
That's what the next real season is,
okay.
Yeah. And I gotta tell you, it looks good. I'm not gonna spoil things for you, but I see some fireworks on the horizon.
I like it. I mean, we can maybe we'll discuss it. You know what? We'll discuss it because we know there's going to be, I shouldn't say we know this, but I'm going off of other challenge Champs versus Stars seasons, and there will be some down weeks. So maybe on one of those weeks, we'll like dive into what's going to happen on the next season of the challenge. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, I just cheated that because it would be a great segue into us talking about the first episode of Champs versus Stars, which was not boring.
Yeah, let's do it. It was not boring at all.
Right? Like, I enjoyed it a lot, and I said to you that at first when I heard, they're doing the Champs versus Stars again, I was kind of like, last season was not good. I didn't really enjoy it that much. Like, it was okay, but I didn't really enjoy it. It was just it was a dominating performance by the Champs. It wasn't even close. all of the interesting and good competitors from the Stars side either got hurt or got kicked off. So many people had to leave the last season. The TO thing was interesting, but it happened early on and then kind of faded away, right? Like,
and I agree with you on all your points that you're making, but I also have to say the TO thing left a bad taste in my mouth because I thought he was so shitty to Ashley when her dad was on his deathbed.
Yes, very true, very true. But like with all these things happening, right? Like the last season, I just I wasn't really in on it at all. They needed to shake things up. And I think they shook things up a lot. They did a lot of different things I thought made it better. And first off, I think they did a much better job of casting. And whether...
Oh.
Yeah, I think they did a much better job of casting, just even the stars. Because even if you don't know who these people are, because obviously, you can't see me because this is an audio podcast. But I'm doing quotations, right? When I'm saying, even if you don't know who these quote-unquote stars are, right? They at least have easily relatable resumes, right? Like, even if you don't know who Hennessy is, you know who Cardi B is, and so it's Cardi B's sister, right? If you don't know who Brooke Hogan is, well, you know who Hulk Hogan is, and that's his daughter. Do you know what I mean? Like it's something, it gives you like some form of recognition that if you don't know who these people are, which I do know who these people are because I watch a lot of bad TV. Right? Do you know what I mean?
You know who Casper Smart is because he is J-Lo's
ex.
Was J-Lo's. Yeah.
Exactly. Right? Do you know what I mean? So I think they just did a lot better job of casting because now, and also with that said now, right? You're also bringing in people who have been on other reality shows. And so what comes with that, did we talk about this last week? I think I mentioned this last week. But what comes with...
I think you alluded to it.
Yeah.
Dive deep, though.
But when you're, Hennessy's been on, I think, one of those like Love and Hip Hop shows, right? Brooke Hogan had her own reality show. Casper Smart was on some other show. I don't know what it was, though, but who knows? When you're dealing with people who were actors, like that Drake guy, Drake Bell, right? Like... Boobie Gibson definitely was on one of those Love and Hip Hop shows. But when you're dealing with people who have been on other reality shows, they understand, the nature of the game, the nature of the beast. They understand how a confessional works and what you need from a confessional, that you need one-liners to make things interesting, right? And already we can see Hennessy is going to be a great confessional star, right?
Oh, yeah.
So... to me, I just think they did a much better job of casting. And, Arian Foster, it kind of sucks. And I'm jumping ahead a little, but I wish we got a lot more of Arian Foster because, yes, it's great that he's an NFL running back. They told us that he was a really good running back, right? Which was good for people that might not know who he is. But the deep dive on Arian Foster, his backstory is super interesting because even the scene where... they kind of alluded to whether or not the elimination would be physical or mental. And the fact that he got so upset that the assumption was that because he's a football player, he wouldn't be as good at the mental challenge. I wish we got more of him because he's so smart and he's that anti-stereotype of what you think a pro athlete is. Like, he's a guy that probably could have continued playing, but was like, no, like, my body's been taking a beating for how many years? Like, ever since I was in college, like, my body's been taking a beating. And so I've made enough money. I've taken care of my money. Like, I don't need to play anymore to just continue damaging my body. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, he's a very smart, and I hate using this term, but articulate athlete, right? And they just did a great job of casting. I'm in on this. Louise Hazel, we love. Boobie Gibson, we love.
I'm so glad Louise Hazel is back.
I know you're a fan, right?
A huge fan, and I like that. Like, I had quietly hoped that because she has been on Champs versus, well, she was on Champs versus Pros, but because she's been on this show before, I was quietly hoping that, she would sort of serve as a sleeper agent because she's low-key kind of a champ.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening.
Yep.
Like, she is working as a sleeper agent with Wes. And I'm just immediately all in. And I have to say, you and I differ on this. I liked the last season of Champs versus Stars because I loved seeing the champs dominate the stars.
See, I just found it boring because I knew they were going to win like every single week. The only thing that kept me in was I love Emily. I think Emily is just a great person and a great character and a real person. So I enjoyed having a season of Emily because we don't get that as much anymore. We had like the Johnny Bananas versus West stuff, which I thought was hilarious because I'm always here for that drama on the challenge. Like there were elements of the season that I enjoyed, but overall I was bored by the season and how it played out.
That's fair. It did seem like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
I think it's important to me that the champs dominate on these shows because it like reinforces my belief that it actually takes something special to be on this show.
Yeah.
And like it justifies in part how like why I love the show. Like not anyone could just walk on and do well.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea that essentially someone who's survived multiple seasons of the challenge becomes like a prison inmate where they just like immediately smell weakness and can like manipulate you and take advantage of you just based off of your like naivete.
Yeah.
Like a great example was it was Ashley M that put that kind of put the bug in Arian Foster's ear and in the ear of the stars that they should nominate their best athlete to compete. And Devin was in on that conversation, and Devin didn't say a word. And in my head, I knew that it was Devin seeing what Ashley was doing and silently approving and not saying anything.
Yes.
Like, I just love that. I mean, maybe they had private conversations that we didn't see.
You love the game,
but I love the idea. Yeah, but I just love that automatically all the champs are like, yeah, no, we're going to screw over the stars. Even though our teams are mixed, we're just going to get rid of all of the stars as fast as we can. And like, I love that subtlety.
Yeah, I didn't understand. There are a couple of things here, right? So, the first challenge was cool. They copied it from that. Was it a Japanese game show video that kind of went viral maybe a month or two ago? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Right? And like they basically copied this challenge from that, right? And which is fine because I'm totally here for that. And it's entertaining. It's visually entertaining. And I was kind of wondering like the way that Shane was falling down and to purposely take people out, like you could actually hurt someone like that. Like I thought that was kind of stupid. No?
Well, I mean, yeah, you could actually hurt someone easily. You could concuss them, but that's the challenge, baby.
No, but I mean, like you could like. I mean, like you're sliding down, and if someone's standing up, like you're taking out their legs, like you could mess up their knee or something. Like I was just like, it was odd, but I thought it was a good challenge overall. Basically, yeah, as I said, you had the whole stairs. I guess you could describe it as stairs, or more so a ramp. And you had to climb up it, and it was covered in lube, and you were also covered in lube, so obviously people were falling down, and it was an interesting first challenge. And I know you don't watch Big Brother, right? So you don't know who that Jose guy is? You're not familiar with them? So I know a lot of people that listen to this might have watched Big Brother as well, but for the people that do not watch Big Brother, let me explain who Jose is, okay?
Yeah, lay it on
When
me.
I described Natalie and said, okay, Natalie was a good character, like she was fun in the Big Brother house, and she played the game and played both sides and whatever. And Victor's game, he wasn't really good at the social side of it, but then he, figured that side of it out and almost ended up winning when he got back into the house because he figured out like, okay, well, it's not just physical. I also have to be a good political person as well. Jose, on the other hand, is just terrible at everything, okay? He walked into the Big Brother house, okay, and immediately proclaimed himself as the Messiah of the house.
Oh, no.
Like, on the first or second day, said that they made up, like, an alliance that had, like, 12 people, which obviously doesn't work because there's way too many people, and then named himself like the head of their alliance like right away, and then ended up getting voted out like ASAP. Like it was honestly the funniest thing ever, and the way that they edited him together, like they had a montage of him just calling himself the Messiah and how he's running the whole house, and he has a whole group of people just following him. Whatever he says goes, and then boom, he gets eliminated. Like it was just amazing. So to see Jose, like he was an annoying person, but he's entertaining. So okay. I'm interested to see him in this episode or this realm that is the challenge. Yeah, I don't know. Who are you excited to see?
I mean, I'm always excited to see Wes, and I'm always excited to see CT. Mm-hmm. And especially, I like CT on the regular challenge.
Yeah.
But I love CT on Champs versus Stars, or Champs versus Pros, because I like seeing CT in the wild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like seeing people, because they do this every season. I love that moment where people are like, oh my god, how does someone like CT exist?
Yeah.
Like how...
Like he just ran up that hill so quickly, right?
Yeah. And I like, was it Casper? I think it was Casper. One of the stars was like, oh my god, like, who is that freak of nature? Who is that, like, dad bod having?
Yeah.
Like, someone said he has, like, the strength of two men.
Yeah.
And then he, like, starts breakdancing in the lube at the top.
It was so good.
Like, I love that discovery every time where people, like, when he and Terrell Owens were going to get into a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And people, like, literally everyone in the house is like, oh, look, there's world-class athlete Terrell Owens, who's about to get served physically by someone who's not actually human. Like, I just, and like Champs versus Pros, the same thing where there's like Olympians where like 3 or 4 episodes in, they're like, so this CT guy could have been an Olympian if he had like not dedicated his life to drinking and fighting people. Like I just love that creeping horror and realization that CT is on another level physically than anyone else.
Yeah.
I always enjoy seeing that. I think we can agree that although we're sorry that Arian Foster is off the show so fast, mm-hmm. I think, I don't know about you, I loved seeing the stars get manipulated that so fast. Like, they really don't know what they're in for.
Well, at first I thought it was kind of weird, right? So they do the challenge, and then they give the big reveal where we find out that there aren't, like, the teams aren't going to be champs versus stars. They're going to mix up the teams, and because CT and Tony had the best times, they're going to be the captains, right? So at this point, they had to pick a team, and I like this shakeup of the series, right? They're going to say, hey, you're going to be on different teams because we've seen the stars just get wiped out by the champs. But what do the champs do? They end up just picking each other first, which I found to be weird. And I was questioning it because, like The Miz, excuse me. Wow, I just lost my breath right there. Like The Miz said at one point, The Miz was like, hold on. So you're picking Devin or you're picking Tony. No, sorry. Who was the other guy that you're picking Shane over Arian Foster? Like, this doesn't make any sense at all, right? And I was sitting there saying, wait, this is really weird. But clearly they had the plan the whole time that, well, even though it's going to be 2 different teams, we're still going to look out for each other no matter what, and we're still going to pick off the different stars on either team. So whichever team loses, we're just going to pick off the stars. And I thought that was a genius move, which I didn't really pick up on while they're picking the teams.
No.
Did you?
I didn't pick up on it when they were picking the teams, but I agree with you that they had clearly, I think they maybe, as soon as they realized that the teams were being mixed, that they all started talking about it. Mm-hmm. But, like, it was pretty clear immediately that the fix was in. Like, they got to work almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that they were just, either they'd spoken, like, I mean, we have no inside knowledge here, but I can imagine that Wes immediately recognized that situation. Like, as soon as The Miz announced that they were mixing the team, I can imagine Wes leaning forward to the people standing in the row in front of him and be like, guys, here's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And just everyone being like, yep, let's do it. And just, like, executing. And, like, Devin and CT and I think Tony are all smart enough to, like, immediately get on board. And Ashley M, too. Like,
I'm happy to see Ashley, by the way. I like seeing Ashley. Shout out to Ashley. I like Ashley a lot.
I like Ashley a lot, and, like... One thing that I've learned from her, she's only been on like 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. You can never underestimate her.
For sure.
Like she has like this sort of bubbly Southern thing happening, but she is an incredibly smart person and knows how to play the politics and politicking perfectly.
Yes. True. Very, very, very true.
I'm glad to have her back. What did you think of Salida taking a hardline stance against cursing in her presence?
I mean, I thought it was weird because, you know, it's something I was talking about in like real life. Okay? And it was a lot of people nowadays don't know, like they think everything is social media, right? Because on social media, you can say whatever you want to somebody else because you're on social media. And people take that same attitude and try to put that in real life as if you can just say whatever you want to or speak however you want to anyone. And that's not how life works, right? So I kind of understand where Salida was coming from because I agree with her, right? Like, listen, I don't know you like that. Like, you can't just talk to me like that. Right? Like, I totally understand it. And I think we get so fixated on, you know, the fact of, oh, well, she swore. Right? And like people make that into the issue. And it's like, well, why is she so offended by a swear word? It's like, no. It's not even it's not even the fact that it's a swear word. It's just like that energy. Like, you can't talk to me like with that energy. Like, me and you aren't that cool. Like, there's no, right? And they're not used to the whole challenge speak, right? That like, Shane, the way that he's talking so loosely and open about, oh, well, Arian's gone now anyways, and he played himself or whatever. Like, who cares? He's gone now. He should have felt sorry for himself or whatever, right? Like, Shane is just talking openly and free like that because that's what happens on the challenge. That's how they talk. The other people in that room, Brooke and Salida and whoever else was there, I can't remember who else was there, that's a star, they're thinking of this as just a normal conversation, and they're just like, wait, why are you talking so bad about him? Like, what did he do to you, right? Like, you're talking so bad about him, and he was barely even here, and he was a nice guy, and he had a charity too, and he really wanted to be here, and, you know, they're taking it as a normal, regular conversation, whereas, like, the challenge people are like, well, this is how we talk. Like, haha, screw you. And you're talking like that because you know, again, this is a faked setup situation. Hey, guys, sit down and eat, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a setup situation by the producers. Sit down and eat. So if I'm Shane, if I'm Kayla, I know that they're having us have this conversation. They're filming us having this conversation because it's going to be in the show. So we need to talk in a certain way so that it makes it on the show. Does that make sense?
See,
that's how I read it. And that's how I read.
I think your read's correct, but I have to give you credit. It's a much more reasonable take than what I had. I saw that all unfold, and I said to myself, man, there's no way she's going to come on our fucking podcast.
Oh, that's funny.
I was definitely more in the I think that your read's correct, and I'm just saying that my initial reaction was like, man, she's overreacting.
Yeah.
Like, she's freaking out. But I think you're right, and that my initial take was wrong.
No, I don't know. I like the first episode. I'm mad that Arian Foster's gone. I didn't really like that elimination challenge. I thought it was kind of weird, but whatever. I think the challenges on the Champs versus Stars are very hit or miss sometimes, right? Obviously, because it's limited what you can do with the stars, right? It's very limited, the certain things that you can do. So that's always going to be an interesting thing week to week. But overall, I'm in. I like the characters. Lil Mama will cause some trouble. We know that. That'll be fun. I love Cam. Shouts to Boobie Gibson. The ladies seem to all love Boobie Gibson. So I think that'll be funny. I guess the ladies or the 90s babies love, what's his name? Drake Bell? Is that his name? Drake Bell?
Drake Bell. Drake Bell is probably, he or Arian Foster would be the biggest stars.
Okay.
In my estimation.
Okay.
Drake Bell's a big deal to people of a certain age group.
Yeah.
And in the U.S. because he starred in a Disney show, so like you and I wouldn't really
I got you
get it.
Yeah, so like I like what they did on this season, and there's people I like. I really am here for Killa Cam. I love Killa Cam. I like Tori. I'm here for this season. The one thing I'm having trouble with is Brooke Hogan, and I want to root for Brooke Hogan. She seems nice, she seems cool, but I'm not down with Hulk. I'm over Hulk, and it was because of the whole video thing that leaked, where he came like part of the video, and I know that what happens now is we never read past the headline, right? So everyone knows about the case that he had against Gawker, and they released a sex tape video or whatever, right? And like he was saying, he's dropping N-bombs all over the place, and I think everybody knows about that, but I don't think people know like the context of what he said. And not to get too deep into like a conversation about racism, because that's not why we're here, but my beef with Hulk in that wasn't the fact that he was using the N-bomb. Like, that's one thing that's okay, cool, that's fucked up, that's one line that you crossed, cool, but it was the context and how he was using it. And the context that he was using it at one point was about, he was talking about his daughter, and his daughter was, I guess, dating or seeing a black guy, or he wasn't sure if she was dating or seeing a black guy, and he was saying that he would be okay with her dating, and I'm using black guy, he's dropping N-bombs, but he was saying that he would only really be okay with his daughter dating a black guy if he was one of those 8-foot MFers who were in the NBA or something like that, or an athlete.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, okay. Tell us how you really feel, Hulkster. And to me, like, that's next level, like, you drop N-bombs, like, you're cool, fuck you, Hollywood Hogan, cool, whatever. But now you're, like, it's beyond that, right? And it's like, you're talking about, like, who's good enough for your daughter and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, who the fuck is your daughter? Right? Like, anyways. But, so and again, his feelings aren't her feelings, so I shouldn't hold it against her.
No,
but that's where I'm conflicted. That's where I stand on this whole thing.
Well, and it sounds like he's going to make an appearance in a fashion, because one of the cuts, for like trailer in the preview was her being like, "Oh, my dad doesn't approve of me. Like, I'm embarrassing the family." Motherfucker, you had a sex tape where you were having sex with your friend's wife, and you were spouting racist nonsense, and you're embarrassed by your daughter?
Yeah, like, what could she have possibly done that you're going to say you were embarrassed of her, right? Exactly. Yeah, so, I don't know what's going on with Brooke. We'll see how the season goes along, but, I'm kind of conflicted, but we'll see. As of now, I'm rooting for her. I hope she does okay, She seems rational. She seemed rational in the whole thing about, Arian being gone, and she kept stating the fact that he actually wanted to be here, which I think was an interesting point, especially after watching what happened with T.O., where there was a big name athlete, and it was like he didn't want to be here. You know what I mean? So, anyways, in on this season. Can't wait till next week.
I have to ask you, who killed it for you this week on Champs vs. Stars?
I can tell you who didn't kill it, and it's Tony. I know Tony was named the MVP, but he's talking a little too much smack to Arian Foster, which I thought was just really funny. And I want to almost say Arian Foster for the comeback that he had on Tony. When Tony, what did Tony say to him? Tony said something so dumb to him about, do you really want to go in? or something. What did Tony say to him? I'm totally drawing a blank here in terms of what Tony...
I know what you're referring to, but I'm also drawing a blank.
Anyways, Arian Foster just saying, like, I'm not on your team, bro, I think was the follow-up. And Tony just seems to be drunk with power and whatever. Tony's the least valuable player. The MVP of this episode... do you know what? I'm going to give it to... Wow, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. You can go.
I'll tell you who I'm gonna give it to. I'm gonna give it to Smashley for pulling the strings.
Oh.
And to getting Arian Foster out, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well played.
Right, like she's the one that pulled the strings, set it up. So shout out to Ashley. Also glad to have her back.
Yeah.
Because I think she's funny. I think she's good at what she does. So, for me, that's who killed it.
I know who I'm going to pick.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm going to pick Casper. Now, yes, Casper did really good in the challenge. Yes, Casper won an elimination. But the real reason why I'm picking Casper is because he smashed J-Lo.
I thought you were going to say because he called out the champs for what they were doing.
Nope. He is the real MVP because he had sex with J-Lo. Shout out to you, Casper. That is something that will never be off your resume. Never. Never.
If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at J Chidley Hill.
And you could find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander and on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And you can find this podcast on iTunes, by the way, and on SoundCloud.
Yes.
And on YouTube.
Yes.
Find the podcast.
Yes.
Anywhere.
Yes. And until next week, this was You Killed It.
Casper, you killed it when you had sex with Jim.